All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we're making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.
Welcome back to He's on Fire podcast, everybody. We have Chierstin Susel in the house tonight, and we've got a couple other things we need to cover. Of course, we're going to talk about the Deandre Ayton rumors. Of course, we're going to talk about the Cardinals coming up. We kind of have a win, though. After, 5 months since the Cardinals meltdown, couple weeks since the Suns meltdown, everything's been awful at Arizona State football. Everything's been bad for ASU basketball with, a little bit of hope there. ASU baseball and softball went down and, things aren't looking too great for the Diamondbacks, although, there's that argument that they're being competitive, but it looks like the Arizona Coyotes might have a home. And you know what? I'll take the might at this point. And I have a lot of questions I want to ask Chierstin as well. We're going to get into absolutely everything here. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by on a Sunday night. Please rate, review, all that fun stuff and all the good places. Share it around tonight. This is going to be fun. He's on Fire podcast. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Let's go.
Urkavici sets, looks up, and it is caught! Dylan Strong! Blitz coming, Matthews, Palmer extending the play, crosses the field, Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald is insane to the 4-yard line. Crowder looking, throws it alley-oop. Oh! He puts it down! He puts it down! They're getting a little wobbly. It's downfield, shots Ayton! The foot race! They won't get him! Center field!
Really got to change that Deandre Ayton intro part, don't I? That's not hitting so hard like it did last year. And that's a bummer because I would love to have him stay here. But you know what? We can get into all that right now. First and foremost, we need to welcome in our special guest for the night, Miss Chierstin Susel, one of the very best Arizona sports correspondents in all of journalism and sports journalism down in Arizona. So Chierstin, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I appreciate the very kind intro. I'm currently playing with my dog right now. So he is being restless. So I apologize if you hear any barking or growling. He's just in a mood right now. So I'm also tossing a ball while I'm talking.
Hey, you know what? I would be upset too if my parents were supposed to be playing with me on a Sunday night and they have to go back to work. But you've been very busy, so I'm sure he's been highly, highly neglected. You have been sitting in city council meetings. I know very much what goes on there and how mundane and boring those can be, but this was a little bit more exciting. It looks like as of right now, the Arizona Coyotes have a little traction with the city of Tempe. Why is this different than Los Arcos and that whole fiasco 20-ish years ago? Why does this feel more promising than that?
Well, for one, the ownership situation is wildly different than it was back then. And I think that they're in a situation right now where they do have options. But if you take it back to the days of trying to get the deal done at Los Arcos, there was some sketchiness behind the scenes of one person wanted to own the team and sort of misled the owner into thinking that he had a deal when he didn't. I wouldn't even compare this at all to anything that went on back then with the Los Arcos deal, which led to the Coyotes moving to Glendale. I just don't think the kind of sketchiness that existed then exists now. But it should feel promising because, especially after hearing what the tone, I would say, of city council at the end of the 8-9 hour meeting that they had this past week. I think the vice mayor said it best in that they did a really good job changing the tone of the entire situation. So I think everybody, Coyotes, city council, even media members that were soaking it all in, felt like, man, the Coyotes did a really, really good job pitching this. They have a really good plan. There's a lot of question marks that still need to be answered. But the city council basically just said, hey, like, we really think that this could be something good. This is our last piece of undeveloped land here in Tempe. And we're going to put the ball in your court. So we're going to put the ball in your court to get out in the community and to make them, to answer their questions and help ease their concerns. We're going to put the ball in your court to figure out the situation with Sky Harbor, because they for sure had some representatives in there in their favor, basically saying like, it's illegal. You're going to get into a legal battle with us. It's dangerous. So they really tried hard to make a case. So we're going to put the ball in your court, Coyotes, to go ahead and spearhead conversations with Sky Harbor, with the city of Phoenix, and balls in your court. So, I have faith in the Morello group and everybody involved in this deal that this is something they really want to pursue and that they'll figure out a way to get that deal done.
And what you just said at the end there, I think, is the key, that they want to pursue. Timing is everything. And the fact that this is happening now is, to me, I think it's a wonderful thing that it happened now, and everything in Glendale didn't get drug out an extra 3 years or whatever it was. And for anybody kind of not understanding where we're coming from here, Chierstin has a new podcast called The Story, and I can't wait to see what you're going to go off of next, because there's so many Arizona sports stories that you could do that are just near and dear to all of our hearts. And one thing at the very end, I kept waiting, that the last segment, it was like 20 or 30 minutes, however long it was. I was like, okay, so what's different about this? What's different about this? And I think it was the last 2 minutes you had a guest on, and they said that this ownership group is different. And you kind of just referenced it right there. Andrew Barroway and the Morello group, who you just spoke about, they seem to have the funds to stabilize this franchise, which is what this city needs, a stabilized franchise. Do you think we are going to be able to get that?
I mean, I think if they're able to get this deal done, absolutely. There's just so much riding on what happens with this deal. And then, what else would possibly be your options? I think if they're able to proceed with negotiations, able to get a deal done, I wouldn't say they're fully in the clear, but they're in the best position I think they've been since the team originally moved to Arizona. But the Morello group not only has the funds, but they have showed that they're willing to not get the team where it needs to be at all costs, but they're losing money by going to play at ASU in the midst of it. Now, their hand was sort of forced to the situation because Glendale basically said, like, we're not doing business with you anymore. You have to figure something else out. So the hand was forced. It was like, what do you do? Put the team back into bankruptcy or sell it again? Like, that wasn't an option for them. So it was like, hey, you're going to have to lose money in order to potentially gain in the future. But the fact that they were willing to do that rather than just say, all right, this is too much, I'm out, it's never going to work here, like ownerships groups have in the past, should say something about who we have owning this team right now.
Absolutely. And everybody, thank you for coming into the chat. Yoel, Jason Joyce, Westville, Coda Kid, congratulations to Vlogs graduating high school. Bravo, my man. Bravo. Looking forward to the next moves. Drop them in the chat. I'm curious if you're going to be going to college or something else. Congratulations, Vlogs, one of our listeners. So Chierstin, born and raised in Arizona myself, huge Coyotes fan. I went to, I think it was game number 3 or game number 4 when they finally moved here from Winnipeg, and watching the whiteout during the playoffs. I mean, this team was a vibe. It was a vibe. It was a shot in the arm. I would say more so than the Diamondbacks. Of course, the Diamondbacks went and won the World Series, and that blows everything else out of the water. But this team was a vibe. After all the work that you put in the last X amount of weeks to make that podcast, I know you believe that hockey can work here, but can hockey thrive in Phoenix?
Yeah, I mean, I think just the missing ingredient here. I mean, of course, ownership has just been something that the Coyotes have never been able to get right, but just it was never going to work in Glendale to the degree that they wanted it to. I mean, originally the perspective is Glendale was going to be, they thought it was going to be something that it didn't necessarily end up being, right? And, it's crazy because it has seen a lot of growth and the Cardinals did move out there as well. But, the NFL attracts, it's once a week. It's not the same. There's 16 now, 17 games. I mean, and that's just games in a season. So it's just like, it doesn't have the same amount of pull where people are willing to, there's only a few home games every season. I'll take the trek out to Glendale. You're talking about a different sport, a different dynamic. And arguably the NFL in most markets is always going to be more popular than an NHL team. Now, if you put it in the heart of, Phoenix, Tempe, which is, where the location would be is just like right in the center of everything. I absolutely think that it would thrive. I mean, the thing that the Coyotes have had, which have always worked in their favor, is you've had your snowbirds and your transplants for a lot of times from cold weather states or Canada that have had a built-in fan base already, even if it's not for the Coyotes, that just enjoy watching hockey. And throughout the years, they've been able to build not only a fan base for the Coyotes, but also the sport of hockey in and of itself has grown tremendously here in Arizona. So if you stick that team right in the heart of everything, make it easily accessible to go to games. Now you've got entertainment around the arena and things like that. And it's it's near ASU. And I mean, they have the right mindset of where this arena should go in order to allow the Coyotes to thrive. And if that's the case, if they're able to get this deal done, there is no question that it can thrive.
I'm excited for it. I moved away in 2002, 2003. And then right then we had the NHL lockout. And then right after the lockout, the Wayne Gretzky situation. Then after the Wayne Gretzky situation, it just felt like it kept going on. And, I was in high school at the time back then, so I didn't really get to keep up with them and I couldn't afford the NHL package. So it's been hard for me to keep up. Of course, I watched every single playoff game in 2011, 2012, whenever we made that awesome run and we had Smitty back there stopping absolutely everything. I have been more and more into hockey since I moved here to Salt Lake. I want to watch them more. It's been hard to do. So I'm excited to see it. So what are the next steps with the city of Tempe? I know that they're just negotiating. This is all an agreement to negotiate. And I kind of work in this industry to a point, so I understand that negotiations are just that. You know what I mean? There could be one thing in the whole 132 piece of paper document and they say, no, I don't like that you're selling Snickers, so you can't have that here. It's got to be Twix. It could be things like, is that where we're at right now? Is that just a step? And is there a timetable to this where the Coyotes and Tempe would like to get something like this done?
Yeah, I'm sure the Coyotes timetable is different than the city's timetable because the Coyotes really have a finite period of time to get things going. But we did ask, Tempe City Mayor what's next. And I guess the majority of the staff go on vacation for the month of July. And so it doesn't look like they're like, yeah, so next week we've got, 6 meetings and we're going to meet with residents and we're going to meet with Sky Harbor and we're going to meet again and we're going to first draft for this is going to be due. Like, I think it's going to be a little bit of a slow process. And I think they're challenging the Coyotes up front to go ahead and get back to the drawing board based on their feedback from this original city council meeting before they even begin talking again. So I don't think this is something that's going to happen, in the next month, even in the next couple of months in terms of like actually reaching an agreement. And you're absolutely right. Like if you take a look at the scale of what they're trying to do, it is far from just an arena. You're talking about housing, hotels, a police station has to be built in that area. You're talking
Plus the Sky Harbor stuff that we
plus the Sky. Yeah,
glazed over.
exactly. There's so much that's involved in what they're trying to do. I could not imagine them reaching an agreement anytime soon. But I mean, I guess you never know. But yeah, like you said, I mean, simply it boggled my mind that there was even two people. I'm surprised it wasn't a unanimous decision to simply hear them out. I mean, they were not agreeing to anything at this point, not even close to agreeing to anything at this point. So why the city of Tempe and all the council members wouldn't just say, you know what, I have a lot of reservations, but like, let's talk is beyond me. But anyway, yeah, they're just talking right now. And this majority of the city staff, they're going to be gone for a good chunk of the summer. It's kind of like their slow time. So yeah.
I'll take it as a win. This franchise needs it. I'll take it as a win. And we'll see what happens moving forward with this. I am curious to see what it's going to look like inside of ASU Stadium. I mean, we kind of had a little bit of a snippet of it when the Chargers played in the soccer stadium, in LA, kind of what that feel would look like. And it wasn't all that bad. I'm sure it's not going to be the most glamorous thing, but if they succeed here, the arena gets built, it pops up in Tempe, those fans will flock. I really feel it. So kind of shifting gears a little bit. I wanted to bring up a video of a rant of yours back in January, right after the Arizona Cardinals loss. And unfortunately, I spent, 30, 45 minutes today trying to find it, couldn't find it. Got a lot of other good content from PHNX, but I couldn't find the exact one. So to sum it up, though, you were just like everybody else. We were frustrated. We saw the best team in football through 12, 13, 14 weeks, completely nosedive, and then Cliff and Steve Keim get a contract extension, right? And then nothing really happens through free agency. And then we get Hollywood Brown, and then DeAndre Hopkins is out for 6 weeks. So, move 3 steps forward, take 4 steps back. That's the life of an Arizona sport. So now I've heard you a little bit, you kind of moved off the Cardinals podcast to a point, but you cover them for the full year. I loved what you and Johnny and Frank did over there. So tell me your views going into 2022. Is this you have to win a playoff game minimum type of season, make the playoffs, 8-8 record, or I guess 8-9 or 9-8? Where are you at with the Arizona Cardinals going into 2022?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the bar should be no different than it was last year. And quite frankly, they're kind of coming back with the majority of the team that they had last year, minus, one of their star pass rushers. But outside of that, I mean, for the most part, and then, the Hopkins suspension, but you're coming back with largely the same team that you had last year. And so why should expectations be any different? I mean, if you're not winning, if you can't win a playoff game, like you've got some serious issues, and Kyler Murray should be making another big time jump as well. I mean, I think he's gotten a lot of slack for, if you talk about, leadership, decision-making, things like that. He's young, he's still maturing, but each and every year that bar for him should be set higher. And so you talk about a higher bar that's set for Kyler, a higher bar that's set for those around him, higher bar that's set for Cliff Kingsbury. There's not going to be any more leeway for him to have the same trend of falling off the wagon at the end of the season. So if the expectation, at one point we were talking about the Cardinals being a Super Bowl contender last year, and that might be people here in Arizona drinking the Kool-Aid. But
even a favorite, Chierstin.
Yeah. So if that was going on last year, the standard of at least winning a game in the playoffs and potentially making some sort of a run should absolutely be there this year.
I completely agree, but you touched on it. My next question, none of this matters. Kyler can develop. D-Hop can come back strong. Hollywood Brown can have 1,500 yards. None of that is going to matter if Cliff Kingsbury cannot figure out how to close out seasons. There's the infamous graphic everybody knows about where he's 3-42 or whatever it is. What is he going to do to change it up? And do you believe Cliff Kingsbury can change it up? Is this team primed to be able to do so? I mean, does D-Hop being out for 6 weeks and then coming on strong help that case at all? None of this matters unless this situation is fixed, right, Chierstin?
Yeah, I don't think it fully falls on Cliff. But the one thing that he can do is set a different tone. I think there's been some questions about whether or not he's the right kind of coach that Kyler needs to be able to take that next step. So I feel like there's no like, oh, as long as Cliff does this, or as long as Cliff does this, or he just needs to change that, and the whole dynamic of the team will be different. I think with a lot of what happened, and it has to do with the off the field kind of stuff, like leadership type of stuff, the dynamic in the locker room, and the culture. And I think that's why they brought guys in like a JJ Watt last year, to kind of help that culture. To me, I don't think Cliff needs to all of a sudden become this, and he's grown he's the great thing that I like about him is he is very open of like, I didn't come in here knowing everything and knowing more than everybody else around me. He has very much been like, this is like, I'm lucky to have this opportunity. Cardinals took a chance on me, and I have continued to learn, and I've made mistakes, and I've continued to learn. So he does have some growing to do. But I think one thing that just really, really needs to change has to do with culture. And Cliff has experimented with like, when are we practicing and how are we practicing and what's the tone here? Like, he's done that throughout his NFL career and time with the Cardinals. So hopefully this year he's going to take another step. But to me, all of that stuff mostly points to just culture and leadership.
Do you see them taking the step this year, getting that playoff game, getting the 11 or 12 win season that would really get them over that point? Do you think they can, Chierstin?
It's like, there's no win for me to answer this question, because I almost feel like if I just off the bat say like, no doubt, I might be just too optimistic. And if I say no, then I'm being too pessimistic. Like they have what they need in order to accomplish their goals. I'll put it that way. How that plays out. I mean, we entered last season and we were so stoked, to have a guy like JJ Watt, and then he gets injured, right? Like, so you never know how it's going to play out. But I would say if Cliff makes a jump, Kyler makes a jump, and they figure out some of the cultural stuff, the leadership stuff, absolutely, they're in a really good position.
Yeah, that's basically the way I see it. There's no reason why they can't and shouldn't have a top 5 offense. Defense, if you can get middle of the pack, you can still get to the Super Bowl with a middle of the pack defense or offense, as long as the other side of the ball is killing it. So I like the way you put that. Very, very PC, very Switzerland in the middle. And I'm going to stick with that. Moving on to more heartbreak for us. Phoenix Suns. I still don't know what happened. I don't know if you heard Mikal Bridges' interview just 1 or 2 days ago, where he was very open about getting their butts kicked and having to come out on fire at halftime. And that just, wasn't the case. What do you think happened on that lowly, what was it, Sunday evening, where we got blown out in Game 7?
I don't know that there's an explanation for it. I really don't. It's just like something got into their heads, I think, at the start of that game or somewhere in that series, when all of a sudden the tide sort of turned to like, yeah, we're on fire. Like, we could potentially sweep this team. Now, I don't know that was what they were thinking, but certainly the fan base was thinking that. And then it sort of turned to like, okay, we lost one at home, and now we lost another one, and now we're heading into Game 7, and our backs were sort of against the wall. No one expected us to be in this situation. Everybody expected us to be a finals team, and backs against the wall, and we're at home, and oh my gosh, like, what if we lose this game at home? Like, what a disappointment. Like, I would assume that something got in their heads early on. I don't remember who it was, and it might have even been Gerald on our PHNX Suns podcast that mentioned that the just the vibe pregame before they kind of even ran out onto the court seemed a little bit different. They weren't themselves. And this is very much a team that has since been knocked for the fun that they like to have. But I think they thrived on playing loose and having fun and getting along with each other. Like that was the dynamic they had all year long. And I think when you're forced into a situation like they were in, that they hadn't really been in all year long, it was sort of like oh, well, we can't be fun and we can't be ourselves and we have to be something different. And I think the moment, unfortunately, was just too big for them because they had this. They were not a team that should have lost by freaking 40 points or whatever it was. Like it's inexplicable. It's a mental thing. Like that is a very, very much a mental thing. And so that's the only way that I can sort of grasp the situation, but there is no amount of talking about it that will make it make sense. Right. it just won't ever make sense.
100%. Have you heard the fan theory that came out just a few days ago where there was a rumor that 3 of the Suns players had COVID for game 6 and game 7? Did you hear about that one?
I did not. Yeah,
that was leaking through Twitter. I don't know if I can believe that one nowadays or even care at this point. It seemed like way more than just COVID, but there's that theory out there. So you touched on Kyler Murray and having to take that leadership. He's the number 1 draft pick. He's the quarterback. Do you feel the same way with Deandre Ayton? Does he need to be taking the same steps? He's a number 1 pick. When you're a number 1 pick, you're supposed to change that franchise. I mean, I guess for both sides, for good and for the better. Do you agree with that DA needs to take other steps as well, just like K1?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think, especially in terms of, leadership or character or things like that, he probably still has some growing to do. But the thing is he was a number 1 overall pick, but he's not the face of the franchise. You can lean on Devin Booker or CP for that matter to have that role and to be the leader of this team. And in DeAndre's the dynamic and his role on the Phoenix Suns he doesn't have the same amount of pressure to be a leader that Kyler Murray has, right? Like, and he doesn't pretend, like nobody pretends that they're like leaning on DA to like lead them, right? Like that's mostly CP's role. And when he came in, I remember that being like a big topic of conversation of like, oh, CP is the one that's going to elevate DeAndre Ayton's game and not just his game on the court, but like the mental aspect and show him what it means to like, be an NBA player. Like, what does his schedule look like? What is his workout schedule? What is the approach to getting better? Right. And so like the same amount of pressure, he's not the face of the franchise. And so I don't think I get it. Oh, the a number 1 overall pick, but it's not the same. Now, does he at the same time have some growing to do? Absolutely. He's grown a lot though. I can tell you that for sure. Night and day difference between the way that he shows up for his job, but also the way that he shows up when he talks to media. He's now a dad. He's each year, he's another year older. He's another year experienced, and he still is a young guy. So absolutely, DA has not arrived when it comes to like growing as a player or as a human being, for sure. And obviously the falling out, and at this point it's like, do you blame somebody for being frustrated in that last game? But the falling out that was so public, thanks to some like awesome reporting by like Lil Wayne and Mr. Orange.
Thanks, Weezy.
We got some insight into what was going on the court and the conversations that were being had between DA and Monty. But unfortunately, that really made everybody take a step back and question, oh, are we giving DA too much credit for the way that he's grown or the way that he's handled the contract situation? Is there more behind the scenes that we didn't know was going on or stirring up behind the scenes all year long? Things like that were questions. I hate it for him because it really seemed like he had turned a page and had gotten past all of those questions about his character or leadership qualities, etc. So I hate that was a part of the way that they went out this year. I hate it for him. But at the end of the day, the only people that really know the dynamic between him and Monty or him and his teammates or whatever is everybody that's inside the franchise internally. So he certainly has a ways to go, but none of this was DA's fault, and he has played really well for the Suns, and he has continued to improve every year. So I hate to say like he doesn't deserve to stay in Phoenix or deserve a contract. He certainly the contract that he wants. He certainly does. It's just come to a point where it's become a business decision of what can we make work with what this player is now, expecting to get. So that's what it comes down to.
No, I completely agree with you there. I disagree to a point when I'm talking about a number one pick and their role and how they're supposed to like change the franchise, but you did hit it head on. He's not the face of the franchise. And I think I have personally failed to make that line up in my own mind. So I'm going to ponder that a little bit because that is a great point, but there are certain responsibilities you have as the number one pick. So Chierstin, I got just a few more quick questions for you. The first one's a little bit heavier here. You are the Phoenix Suns general manager for this offseason. Now, you don't have to know the full CBA. You can only trade X amount of players for this amount of money, whatever it is. But you've heard the rumors. I mean, we've all talked about it. I've heard you discuss it a bunch of times. Are you making trades to get KD to Phoenix and shipping Deandre Ayton out? I want to know what you would do as the general manager of the Suns.
Yeah, if that's a possibility, I'm absolutely going after a guy like Kevin Durant. Now, there would be a little bit of, and I've mentioned this when I've talked about it, over at PHNX, is that you're just making the assumption that he's going to be a good fit personality-wise, and we all know that you put together a super team, and honestly, I don't know if I would say rarely does it work out, but it is no guarantee that it's going to work out when you've got, you have to have egos in check and players that are willing to play unselfish basketball. And I think Monty is a coach that expects that dynamic to exist. So I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge that it might not be perfect, but if I can get a guy like Kevin Durant, I'm saying, if we can make this move to win now while we still have Chris Paul, I'm going to do it. And I think kind of what that would entail is also maybe offloading Mikal Bridges as well, which would be really tough, like really tough. But if you're thinking that like you can win a championship if you have this guy, I would say do what you need to do to get the championship. And it's not like the Suns have never, here's how I've sort of justified it. It's not like the Suns have never circled back and brought back a player. So maybe we could maybe we could go win a championship and then we'll bring Mikal back. We'll trade for him later on down the road and he'll become a Phoenix Sun again. But when it comes down to it, do you think that move is going to put you in a position to win a title or not? And if they're looking at it and saying, we can do it without him, without KD, then maybe you don't. And honestly, like in my opinion, KD would be a complete game changer. So this is just me. Like I would go ahead and do it. But when you're making those types of decisions, the end goal should be winning a title.
I think the key ingredient to super teams is making sure that those players have a massive chip on their shoulder. Look at when Gary Payton and Karl Malone joined the tail end of Kobe and Shaq, right? Kobe and Shaq didn't care. They had a three-peat. They didn't like each other, right? Look at the Brooklyn team when they brought in KG and Paul Pierce. They didn't have a chip on their shoulder. KG, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen together, huge chip on their shoulder. LeBron trying to prove himself and go down to South Beach, huge chip on his shoulder. Right. I mean, I'd even go as far back as Barkley, Elijah One, Clyde Drexler, those guys. I mean, Elijah One, Clyde, they already won. Charles Barkley had a huge chip on his shoulder, but Scottie Pippen didn't care, So
Yeah.
that is a huge thing that people forget to talk about. I question if it will work, obviously, but fortunately we do have Chris Paul, and he's not in the place to be Chris Paul anymore. He's going to be a facilitator. So I think it works. 2 more quick questions and we'll get you out of here, Chierstin. Arizona State football. You went there, you graduated, you're a Sun Devil, forks up, all that fun stuff. I'm sure Saul and all the Arizona guys are giving you grief every single day with what's going on. What do you make of it quickly?
Yeah. So honestly, ever since the NCAA, allegations and stuff came out, and I sort of had tuned out. I mean, it's been a rough go for them because
Yeah.
you had COVID, and then you have the NCAA violations and stuff like that. So it's just like, what's there to really pay attention to or watch? And the way that I view this team right now, it's just like, why would I want to be invested in this when I know that like you could have something new drop in this at any moment. You can, you consistently have players that are in and out of the program because of it. I think the amount of coaching staff that they've had, coaching turnaround that they've had on their staff has been crazy. I definitely didn't think that this past season was going to mean anything because of all of it. So it's unfortunate. I've always been a huge Herm Edwards fan. I felt, even when they took a chance on bringing Herm in, it was just like, no, like it's definitely a little bit of a gamble. Obviously, he'd been out of coaching for so long, was an NFL coach, even when he was coaching. But like, I was like, no, this is great. Like freaking do something. Like you're ASU in the Pac-12. Like this is a great move. Go out there and get a guy like Herm. And unfortunately, everything seemed to be working for them. Yeah. Antonio Pierce was like this incredible recruiter and was turning this program into something that was like, it was really a destination. And in the heyday of the Herm Edwards era, like that was my beat for 12. Like that was the first beat that I had was ASU. So I was ASU, like every single day I was there. And it was
flipping Jaden Daniels was huge. And up here in Utah, they couldn't talk enough smack about Arizona State and flipping him. But yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's like, it's unfortunate that the vibe has changed so much surrounding this program. It's like, I don't even know what's going to happen. I have no idea. How long is it going to take for them to recover? But I certainly don't look at this team and think like, man, I'm really excited for this upcoming season. It's unfortunate. It's, like you have this thing hanging over your head still. So, I hate it. I hate it for Herm. I hate it for all the coaches that were involved. I hate it for all the players. I hate it for all of Sun Devil fans. I just, across the board, I hate all of it.
18 transfers, I think, is what it was that transferred out this past year. Obviously, some of them, all of them for different reasons, some to Division II schools and whatnot. A lot of them really, really big names. Jaden leaves, and then we get Emory Jones, right? So that's great. But who's he going to throw to? And you got Chad Johnson still there, and a couple other guys, but a lot of the big names have left. It sucks. It just sucks. At the end of the day, it just sucks. And then watching Arizona State basketball go out the way they did, I am a little high on them, but I honestly refuse to get excited about any other team in the Valley ever again. Arizona State softball going out just recently, the way they went out was tumultuous. Arizona State baseball not having the type of season you kind of really wanted as a first year, but you get the number one player in recruiting as a shortstop. Yeah, that's great for Willie Bloomquist. So look at Arizona State athletics and all the sports we covered. Look at the top teams, and you can include the Mercury in this as well too, the top pro teams. Which team is going to be the closest for us to get that elusive title? Which team do you think is the closest right now?
I mean,
and could achieve it?
I think it's still the Suns, no doubt, for sure. I mean, they've been the closest one, like actually been there, to the finals in the last couple of years. Should have been back to the finals this year. And if they're able to figure out the Deandre Ayton situation or make some moves, and I have full faith in James Jones to make the right decisions, I think they're going to be right back in the mix next year. So for sure, the Suns.
Especially if you trade for KD, Chierstin. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. Please tell everybody about the new podcasts, plural, that you are working on and where everybody can find your content.
Yeah. So one is PHNX The Story. It is just a storytelling podcast. It's my biggest passion in life is to tell stories. So I'm really excited that launched just a few weeks ago. And yeah, if you have any questions about the Coyotes, their tenure, how they ended up getting to the point that they're at now, go back and take a listen to that 3-part series. So that's PHNX The Story. And then we just revamped our the Phoenix Sports podcast on PHNX. So myself, Michaela Perkins, every Friday at 12:30, we'll be talking all things Phoenix sports with a twist of some entertainment. We've got all new segments, all new content. It's a completely new revamped show. So I'm really excited about that. We just had our first show on Friday. So a
And
lot of exciting things.
y'all always got to do this while I'm working. So I always catch the audio side of it, when I'm driving home or I'm trying to do chores around the house. So hard to watch that during it. Chierstin, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Okay. Thanks so much for having me. See ya.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye. That was awesome. That was a lot of fun. Again, everybody go check out the Phoenix Coyotes segment that she just did. Arizona Coyotes. Why do I keep saying that? I don't know if anybody else remembers when they moved into town, when you had Kachuk and Roenick, Hobby Bulin, Dallas Drake, Tempo Newman, and I could keep going because this was the era that I was all about. Those Kachina jerseys, the dark ones, they got their third jersey. Like, were they not a vibe? Were they not a vibe, you guys? They were a straight vibe. They were more of a vibe than the Arizona Diamondbacks. There was few things better than that whiteout. I mean, I was living in Michigan during this time, right? And this is during the Red Wings heyday in the 90s with Yzerman and Fedorov and all those dudes, right? They were talking about our whiteout. In Phoenix, in the desert where nobody said hockey could exist, right? This team was a vibe, and I fully believe this team can get there. I would like to cover them more. Unfortunately, this has been such a piss poor run franchise. How many owners since they've moved here? 3 or 4 different owners, and the league had to own them and operate them for 3 or 4 seasons. They've had 2 lockouts since 2000. That really honestly makes it hard to be a fan when your franchise or your league has 2 lockouts. That makes it hard to begin with. No ownership group. No players want to sign with you. It's tough, but I can't wait to talk to this person. I don't think I've talked to him since before Game 6 of the most recent playoffs that the Suns, blew away. Been wanting to talk to him. I mean, I think he came on just briefly that Sunday night even. Didn't have time to talk to him, but here we are. Finally back to the He's on Fire podcast. Sir Ahmet, how's it going, man?
I'm doing okay. Considering everything that's going on in this country, I think I'm doing pretty good.
He's on fire!
That's a win. If anybody is just doing okay right now, like, that is an absolute win. And finally, I mean, I don't know if I can call it. I don't know if he's the host. I haven't talked to you guys about this. Is this guy the official host of He's on Fire After Dark, or are you guys co-hosts? I want to bring him in right.
We're gonna fight over it. We're gonna do a little battle, but right now he's the host. I gotta win it over from him.
Oh yeah, he took my training and he figured out how to do all this and set it up. So you know what? He is the unofficial official host of He's on Fire After Dark. Jay Joyce, what's going on? See, he's even got he's over there. He's got the password and everything, so he immediately gets bumped to the top. What's going on, man? How we doing?
I'm coming for you, bro.
Hey, like we can go all night, man. It took me 4 hours to learn all this shit.
The thing is, he has an Ohio State Buckeyes shirt on. That's immediate thumbs down. You know what? We're probably going to get a bad review over this. Speaking of which, you guys, please go rate and review us, especially on Spotify, because the Hornets fans Pelicans fans rated our 1-star reviews and whatnot. So please go help us out and do that. Share this out. Donate to the pod through anchor.fm. We really appreciate you guys. Ahmet, I'm not even going to get into what you think happened in Game 7. We kind of just went through it with Chierstin. Nobody knows anything.
She was dropping bars right now. She was dropping loud.
Yeah,
bars.
she was.
Chierstin is a killer, you guys. I hope you guys were able to listen to the whole thing. Chierstin is one of my favorite correspondents, like by far. I mean, if I could sit down at a bar with a handful of Arizona sports commentators, obviously you guys get the top 2 seats, obviously, right? I would get Johnny Venerable in. I would get Bo Brack in.
Yep.
I would get. I actually like Dave Burns. Don't hate me for it. I like Dave. I like Dave Burns. I can't stand
old man energy. You need that old man.
I can't stand Gambo, but I like him. I liked him 15 years ago when he didn't have the old man energy when he first started with Gambo. Back when it was Gambo and Ash back in the day, and then Ash left. But then I would also bring on Chierstin. I would bring on Paolo Boyven. I'd bring on Doug Haller, who covers Arizona State as well too. Like, that's like the mecca of Arizona sports to me. I think Chierstin just does a wonderful job. So she was spitting bars, and a lot of what she said, I want to ask you guys too about the difference with K1 and Deandre Ayton being number 1 picks and all that. But let's get into some of the, I guess they're rumors. Ahmet, what do you think is going to happen with the Suns? Do you think there's proof in the pudding with KD, LeBron, Bradley Beal, things like that? Talk to me.
I think it's all smoke. I think it's just everyone speculating on what's happening. I mean, dude,
Don't start with me.
The season ended so poorly.
Ahmet is already starting.
No, I mean, so we haven't talked since.
No,
you know, we were up.
We haven't gone on air together since we lost.
Yeah, and Jay and I touched on it just a little bit, man. I told him, I'm like, I'm gonna save it for the big pod. Like, okay, so we don't really know what happened. There's a lot of speculation. There was a lot of like, I guess the team was winning, but because the team was winning, it just kind of like it overflowed over like the negative feelings that a lot of the players were having. But I mean, in terms of like, right? I mean, in terms of like what we're doing next, I mean, I'm still stuck. Like I'm still trying to figure out what happened, right? So like, was it like something that built up over time, or was it just an instance? And the way that Mikal Bridges.
So before you get into that, I want to bring this point to you. I don't know if you heard this. Do you remember when Monty got issued his Coach of the Year and like Book and Chris Paul and stuff there, and the kids walked in? You remember that? The very first thing was, hey, yo. Regardless of everything that's going on right now, we celebrate everything, and then they went into Monty's thing. Yeah. You look when you kind of pause that and you kind of look at the like 4 or 5 players that are around them, like all their heads are down like this, dude. And so there was clearly something right there. The fact Chris Paul had to said regardless of everything else that's going on, and this is when the series was 2-2. That is a big red flag for me.
I think that may be reading it into it a little bit too much, but it could be 100% true too. Like you could go either way, but I think that everything falls on this team on basically 4 people: James Jones, Booker, CP3, and then Ayton has to play better.
Monty?
Sorry, did I say Monty? That was a 4th guy. The 5th guy is Ayton, because even if Ayton, so let's start at the top. Like James Jones, he tried to address all the issues. He brought back some guys. Torrey Craig was completely wasted. Like he did not prove to be the same player he was with this team before. Chris Paul, now it's at a point where it's like Anthony Davis status, where it's like if it's a playoff time, Chris Paul cannot play, or he has to be in a limited role. Like he just gets hurt way too much. The stamina, the endurance that it takes to play in a playoff game, because these players always say that a regular season game, but a playoff game is like 2 times that type of energy level, and a finals is even more than that. So Chris Paul in the second round not being able to finish, that's and he had 5 points at halftime in Game 7. 5 points. Okay. Yep. That is, I mean, you have to be aggressive, right? And even if they're pushing off your spot, then you have to find other ways. And he is such a gamesman of basketball. He knows how to get fouls. He knows how to at least create something. And he wasn't doing that. So I honestly thought he was disinterested at that point. I didn't think he was cared. Like that's what I saw. I don't know if did you guys see that too? Did you think he cared?
I didn't know how to characterize it, but that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jay, what do you think? Do you think he was putting his 100% effort?
I think everybody was checked out. That was sort of everybody's body language to me.
I think Book didn't check out, but I think he played in a point where he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to split a double team. He didn't know how to throw out of a double team. He didn't know how to kind of escape the double team and do something else. So that's why I look at Book and I go, and this is why I was really conflicted on who I wanted to win this year when we got to the finals, because I'm like, I don't want the Warriors to win because their fan base sucks. I don't like the way they play. I hate Draymond Green. Steve Kerr used to be part of our franchise. So there's a lot of reasons for me to be like, I don't want the Warriors to win. And then the only reason that I didn't want the Celtics to win is because I didn't want Tatum to get a championship before Booker. But now I think about it and I go, maybe that's what Booker needs, is to be like, you have to find a way to score. And Tatum has been in more battles than Booker's been in the playoffs. Like he's been in a couple games before this. Yeah. And that's what it takes, right? Like the Bucks, like it took Giannis a bunch of defeats to get to where he was last year.
Yep.
So maybe this is what Booker needs. He needs some salt in the wound to understand that. Be like, yeah, people are going to compare you to him, and the next Kobe is him now. It's Tatum. It's not you.
It was Jason Tatum at first. Book took it away last year, I think, and now Tatum took it back again.
He did, but Tatum definitely stole it with that. What do you have in the game? The game 7, he had like 47 points or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, whatever it was. Like
Tatum I gotta be honest. I haven't watched a thing of basketball since then, and I didn't watch Game 2 tonight.
And I didn't watch most of the stuff. I because I'm such a sicko, I just go back and look at the box score. I watched this game with a bunch of friends actually because I needed a place to take my son to do something because I'm a single dad this weekend. My wife and my baby are away, but
losing your mind.
Yeah, I needed something. But yeah, I mean, Tatum, I don't like his game. I think Booker has a better game, but I think Tatum is a little bit more aggressive than Booker is when it comes to driving the paint, taking like difficult shots. Even though Booker takes a lot of difficult shots, but he's really good at passing out at a double teams, and he leans on that, and that's the offense needs that. So so we talked about Booker, we talked about Paul, we talked about Ayton a little bit. Let me talk about Monty. Monty didn't make any adjustments. I mean, Twitter, we were all over this, right? We're like, where's the adjustments? Where's the Spain pick and rolls? Multiple Spain pick and rolls. Where's attacking Luka? Where's
Aaron Holiday? Anything? Where's
Aaron Holiday? Just a lot of stuff. Like where's this? We couldn't go to a small ball 5 with Crowder. We didn't even try that. Like we didn't try stuff. We just kept trying to do what we're doing, and it didn't work. And
it was very Cliff Kingsbury-esque, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And it makes me think, like, are we the next Utah Jazz? Are we?
Or not.
Quinn Snyder stepped down, right?
Yeah, that's big, by the way. That's going to have ramifications throughout the league.
And if we run it back, right? Like, that's where I'm like, the lowest we can be is the Utah Jazz, where we're just running it back with the same team. And I don't know what the highs can be. I don't know what the highs can be.
I disagree because not every, like they say in football before it was a 17 game, not every 8-8 season is built the same, right? So I disagree with the Jazz just because when they got Donovan Mitchell and they made it to the playoffs and got bounced the first 2 years, it was kind of like we're happy to be there. We didn't expect to be here, right? And then they bring in Bogdanovich and they get the number 1 seed. And then they thought, let's try to run it back this year and do the same thing. So I disagree because I just think that one was built a little bit differently, but I know exactly what you're trying to say. Are you just going to be this 4th to 7th tier team every single year or 3rd, whatever that is?
Yeah, because Utah, I think they were first place, their first seed last year, right? But and then this year they were like what, the 4th or 5th seed. I mean, it's
they
just
were the 4th seed, lost to 5 Dallas.
Right? Yeah, so it's just like, can you run it back with the same team? Now, there's other things to put in the scenario is that now you have a bunch of expiring contracts. You can get Dario back if you want him. Maybe that changes some things for you. You don't need a Biyombo, right? Like that contract goes away, and that was a minimum deal, but you'd have to pay him more than what you did this year for what he played for. You're going to have to pay more to JaVale McGee. You're obviously going to have to pay. Now, the Cam Johnson thing is like, now you're at a point where it's like, okay, bro, you really didn't show up that much in the playoffs. So we can't pay
neither did McHale.
But McHale at least is at, I think he's at.
McHale had a few games where he was the second best player on the court, especially in that.
But not all.
Series.
But then there was games where he was not even on the like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying.
And then he wasn't even defending.
Yeah.
But at least McHale through the season can give you consistent defense to get you to 60 wins,
Yeah.
And Cam, I don't know. Like, I don't know now. Like, I'm really confused about how I feel about Cam because he goes on yamming on PJ Tucker in the finals in a game where we're losing, trying to get us back, hitting threes. He's doing a bunch of stuff. And then he just can't figure it out for even the first round. You know, he has bad games. So, and maybe that's the injury. So that's why I'm just like, I'm totally confused on how to feel about this team because there's so many components that are
there's not something, and I've heard this from multiple people. There's not something you can reach out and touch and be like, oh, he was injured. Oh, they were that. Oh, this is why. You know what I mean? There's not one thing we can put on, which is why it's hard. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this is one of the worst. This was worse than the Cardinals losing the Super Bowl, like by far, because that was
100%
fluky.
because the Cardinals were in the Super Bowl, and you can go back and if you want to get ticky tacky about refereeing, you know, there's a potential that that game shouldn't have ended on that play, or at least they shouldn't have scored on that play, right?
I'll always go back to Antrell Roll, bro. Antrell Roll stepping onto the field when Fitz is coming down to try to tackle Harrison, gets in his way, and Fitz gets like half tackled and then runs and gets him at the last second and almost gets him out. If Antrell Roll wasn't there, that dude's going down at the 8-yard line, end of half.
Probably, but I'll also say this. That was
plus the cards went out.
That was like if you want to show how not to tackle somebody, just show them that Fitz like hold 100-yard play because he had so many opportunities to tackle him.
Not to mention, why are we?
It's James Harrison though.
Why is Kurt Warner throwing the ball at the 2-yard mark and throwing that kind of pass?
That was a cliff play.
Right.
That was a cliff.
Oh my
There's
god!
A lot of things we can say about that play, but the thing is,
this is depressing.
At a point, we were winning that game on a Fitzgerald runaway touchdown.
Yeah.
Right. And if there was somebody else other than Aaron Francisco playing on that play, maybe we win that game. You know, anybody, put me out there, coach.
Everybody except Money Mike Williams, who was like 5'8" at the time or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that.
Whatever it is, dude, whatever it was. But yeah, they were winning that game. The problem with this is that when you go back and look at it, and so like, you know, I went to this little party that we had to watch game 2, and there was a Warriors fan there. I don't show my allegiance. Like my friends that were there, they know, and they're not gonna say anything to me. But like there was a Warriors fan there, and I didn't show my allegiance, and he was just talking about it, and I had to ask him because I'm like, dude, do you like Draymond Green? And he's like, yeah, I love him. And I'm like, because we had some conversations previously with some other folks that I knew there, and they're all Lakers fans. But I'm like, dude, this guy, 97% of the league thinks this guy is trash. Not just because he talks all the garbage and can't back it up, but the fact that he plays so dirty, right?
Yeah.
So then my next question to this gentleman was, well, do you like Pat Beverly? And he's like, I mean, you know, yeah. But I'm like, dude, it's really like the fandom, right? Like, how can you like Draymond Green? Like, he's such a sensitive dude. He plays so foul. And I would like, so if there was a trade to get Draymond Green to the Suns, vetoed, right? Vetoed across the board.
Yeah, I don't want him by any stretch.
I'm not doing that. No.
Yeah.
I like his play style, I guess, to a point. If you take the illegal shit out of the way, I don't want that attention on us. I don't want that. No, I don't want him.
So you guys, I don't think you guys watched the game. He got a technical in the first quarter of that game. He could have got at least 5 technicals in that game. He was touching people in the face. He was like tackling people. He was doing the arm hook thing on the offense, trying to draw.
I saw the Grant Williams shit, and I saw the Jaylen Brown shit. Yeah. So
and Jaylen Brown,
he gets away. He gets away with so much shit. It's hard to watch Warriors games, just specifically Draymond Green. Like, I can't stand watching him.
And he's such a front runner too, you know. And I just
get my man Book out of Phoenix.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Dude,
tampering.
What do you do? and who else says shit like that? Pat Bev.
Yeah.
Pat Bev, right? So these guys
the same fucking
to
guy.
me, and so
Richard Sherman.
Yeah.
That kind of guy.
I kind of like Richard Sherman.
Legion of Boom, Richard Sherman, not Richard Sherman outside of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe not him
Yeah,
trying to kick down the door, but
I liked when he was talking shit to Michael Crabtree. Like, I thought that was pretty cool when he did that.
sorry ass receiver.
Yeah.
Snatched his chin or whatever.
I like that part. But no, I mean, so going back to Draymond, honestly, like, I think he's really, really overrated. I would take Dennis Rodman over him because Dennis Rodman had at least right, and they would put.
That's a
him
hot
in the
take
post.
for whatever reason. I don't get it. Like, I said that on TikTok, and fucking people blew me up. They're like, "How can you say like Rodman?"
They don't know.
Better?
They don't know.
I'm 21 years old, and I know that Dennis Rodman, like, everybody wanted him, and he can fit in any system.
You do your homework though, dude. You do your homework.
Yeah.
Like those other people, anybody that says Draymond or Pat Bev is better than Dennis Rodman, you have to cancel them. Like everything that they say afterwards does not matter when it comes to basketball.
Yeah, and I love that we always agree on this stuff. But I mean, like, what I want to say about Dennis Rodman is that he would run the triangle. They would put him in the post with the ball, and he would run it. I know they do that with Draymond. But Draymond he's not even looking to shoot. Like, he's not even looking to do anything else. He's always looking to find Steph and or Clay. And you know, I don't know. I mean, it hurts because, and we know this across the board, that all the analyst experts said that the Suns should be in the finals. And if we were playing this, I really want to see how we would play against the Celtics team.
Well, we're never gonna know because this whole playoff run, we were a shell of ourselves.
Yeah. And so looking forward a little bit, like, you know, even if we would have advanced past Dallas, there was a lot of questions about campaign. Like, this guy could not even get on the court, right? And Monty refused to play Aaron Holiday. And Torrey Craig was a bust, complete bust.
Who? Never heard of him.
Yeah, exactly. He's a ghost. So that's why this thing is upside down, because the Suns are in the upside down, dude. They're all gone. They're ghosts to me.
Well, the good news is that 2 weeks from Thursday is the NBA draft, and that's like, I'm really looking forward to that because that's when I felt like I could turn the page with the Cardinals finally. You know, we signed Zach Ertz, and I was like, okay, I can talk about this. Here we go. And then there was nothing. But then the NFL draft happened. Trade for Brown. I'm not saying that the Suns are going to do that, but I was saying things are going to switch that way. So a few things that I'm hearing, by the way, is that a lot of the NBA, and this was before Quinn Snyder retired just last night or whatever, 2 days ago. A lot of the league is going to be waiting on, get this, the Knicks, which is so funny to think of, because the worst kept secret in the league was that Julius Randle was getting traded for Zion and Spida Mitchell was going to be going up to New York. And so then that leaves the Jazz to pick up the pieces and, you know, the rest of the league to kind of funnel. But now the Knicks want to make a run at Jalen Brunson by hiring his dad as an assistant coach. I forget Mr. Brunson's name, Coach Brunson, what his first name is. But Rick, something with an R seems to make sense.
Yeah, I think
but they're waiting for Jalen Brunson to become a free agent, to move there, to decide if they're going to trade for Mitchell or not. I could actually see Mitchell going to the Heat for like a Tyler Herro type of package, or Duncan Robinson.
That's what I was thinking.
But that's what's going to be kind of the barometer to all the moves happening. So when I heard that, I was like, well, what about the Phoenix to KD thing? And I just started thinking, I was like, you might have to get a 3-team trade in there. What Flex texted out or tweeted out a while ago and said, you know, you got to trade for like Vassell or Pirtle and a pick for lower value so you can make the move for KD, because you make that as the precursor move, then you do the KD thing. But all of that is kind of predicated on a lot of these other teams. So I just thought that was interesting take, by the way. So take that for what you will.
I mean, I'll just say this. Like, if you're going to trade for KD, then CP3 has to go. Because we can't have two fragile ball handlers on the team around Book. Because
did you hear about my take with Chris Paul and Derek Fisher?
I saw that. I did see that.
Yay or nay?
So it's funny because, so again, I'm at a Lakers watch party for the Warriors. They're all rooting for the Warriors. They're all like, yeah, you know, basically CP3, all he does is jump into people and get fouls. And I'm like, or first they started with Nash. Like, Nash is the guy that jumps into people to get fouls. I'm like, well, he does one move. He does one move where he slows down on the drive and then he draws the foul, right? And then it's usually an and one. That's not illegal. That's not dirty. That's nothing like, that's gamesmanship, right? CP3 does the same thing, but tell me a time when you ever seen CP3 jump into somebody, because he does not even go to the rim.
No, man. No. He avoids contact at all costs.
Yeah.
So Derek Fisher, he needs to be treated like Derek Fisher.
At the end of his career, that's what he did, was jump into people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. But what did Derek Fisher do? Ran the offense, got it to Shaq and Kobe, operated the pick and roll, hit clutch shots when needed. That's what he did. That's what we need from Chris Paul.
For sure. And he's a better three-point shooter than
he gets credit for.
Yeah. Well, I have to look at the stats. You're right. I don't know what I'm saying.
In clutch time in a game 7, like, you give me a Derek Fisher 3 over Chris Paul, I'll take Derek Fisher shooting that 3. Remember the one where he had
especially
like 0.4 seconds left or something?
Yeah, if it's a spot of 3 for sure.
Because Derek Fisher was money from the wing.
Yeah, dude.
CP3 has to build rhythm and like take it off the dribble. He's not like a spot up shooter. He's too short, dude. And he's right-handed. That gives Derek Fisher, when you're left-handed and people don't like, it's just weird. Like, left-handers, they have like an advantage because no one ever thinks you're going to shoot that way for some reason.
Derek Fisher was jacked too.
Yeah, and he was jacked.
Oh yeah, he was like a mini
CP3 is not jacked. And CP3 has always been hurt, even when he was like 20. He's always hurt.
I'm trying to look up his stats right now. Hang on.
Yeah, keep looking. But that I mean, he can do what he does in the regular season, that's fine. But when it comes to the playoffs, he needs to be Derek Fisher 2.0 and nothing more, because we just can't rely on him. That's why I personally like Bradley Beal. Like, if there was a way we could trade DA for whatever, get Bradley Beal, go sign another center, run it back. I love Bradley Beal.
What other center are you gonna get, dude? What other center are you gonna get? Clint Capella?
Yeah, I'll take Clint Capella, who had just as good of a defensive rating this year than him. One that already knows Chris Paul, one that can go up and yam it down on somebody, play the interior defense, and do a few things. I'll take Clint Capella over that. I think the player that Deandre Ayton is versus Beal is a far superior player, and the dropout that we're going to get is not going to be as significant if you get a guy like Clint Capella or Thomas Bryant, who I like, but he's a young guy too, so we can talk about that and the validity of it all you want. But I think Clint Capella would be perfect.
Look, I just think so. Chierstin made this point, and we talked about it a little bit. But when you got a number 1 draft pick, and we don't even really know the things that we're hanging on DA's head right now, is that he didn't show up in the games that we lost. But when we look at last year and we saw what DA did, right, in the playoffs, like, he showed up in a role. He was a role player. And I really think if we're talking about CP3 is not there, he's too old. Why don't we give the money to Ayton and see what he can do as building the offense around him?
Because centers don't win, bro.
Okay.
It's a ball handler guard league. That's my personal opinion. I would not.
But I think you can be different than these teams. And then I was looking at the box scores of all these teams, dude, and all these teams do is shoot threes and score at the rim and get free throws. But the mid range is gone. And somebody like Ayton, somebody like Chris Paul, somebody like Devin Booker, they were scoring 40 points in the mid range. Those 3 guys, right? And include Mikal. When I went back and looked at the Mavericks box score when we won and lost, like, they were getting 8 points in mid range, 8 compared to 40. Like, the variability in the offense that you can do when you have somebody, because I think that's a problem. Is like, what happens is a team wins and then everyone's like, oh, they're gonna win next year, and then we got to replicate what they do, right? So, like, there's no other Al Horfords out there. There's only one Al Horford. Like, there's maybe like a Miles Turner, maybe a couple guys that can do something that Al Horford, but he's got the good mix of mid-range, post up, right? 3-point shooting and defense
basketball IQ.
and be able to be a small ball 5. But DA can do all those things. I truly believe he can do those things. I think it really comes down to him getting the ball more.
I found the clutch stats if you guys want to hear. So they didn't have it on StatMuse or Basketball Reference, not that I can find, but Complex Sports put together the clutchest players of all time, the top 25. Derek Fisher is at 25, and he averages close to 9 points in the clutch. And if you don't know, clutch is the last 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. Averaging 9 points within those 5 minutes is pretty tight.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really good.
Well, when you got Kobe and Shaq and all those guys too, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just don't want to build around DA because I don't think he's not worth the max, but you have to pay him the max. And if that were the case, that's fine. Like, pay him the max. Like, I've said that this whole time. I think we're going to get Stronghold to force to pay him the max. And I don't think he is. That's totally fine. I just think that I think it's more important to have a ball handler, playmaker type of guy in the perimeter like Beal over Ayton. I would take that. And I should have listened to myself when I originally wanted Luka over DA, heard all the stuff about Luka being a child, yada, yada, yada. I was like, okay, give me DA, give me DeAndre Ayton all day long. I want a center. We've never had a center before, right? I was all about it, but I knew in the back of my mind, it kept telling me like, no, you need a guard, not necessarily a point guard, but a shot creator, a shot maker, a big shot taker, and that kind of player. And that's what's going to put you over the hump in the NBA. That kind of guy. And you look back at especially the last 20 years, give me a center that's led his team. Tim Duncan. I'll consider Tim Duncan a center because of how they played, right? I'll consider him a center. After that, I mean, give me another one that led it, you know?
But the thing is, like, you say that, right? And we had 2 of those guys and they didn't show up. We had 2 of them. One was a Hall of Famer, right? And one is an all NBA player. And where were they?
One, we should have learned last year with Chris Paul, right? We should have learned our lesson and should have known that. Where was Booker? You know,
James Jones.
100%. I'm gonna give Devin Booker a get out of jail free card because of him making the All NBA, because of the All-Star appearance, because of all that he has accomplished. And DA has not made All NBA, has not made All-Star, has not done that stuff. And when he's gotten the ball, he was not as dominant as he should have been.
He wasn't I'm still curious, but he was efficient. He was so efficient, dude.
Yeah, of course you're efficient when 82% of your field goals are going to be assisted. That means he's not creating for his own though. He's not creating his own. No. 82% of his shots that were makes were assisted. And I guarantee you at least another 10 to 12% were off of offensive rebounds that were little buckets right there.
Okay, so let's say that, but he also was, I think a percentage was like 63%.
And how many of those were assisted is what I'm saying is that because somebody got him the ball, right? Somebody was able to pass him the ball where he was able to make that field goal. You had to have that person create that shot, break down the defense, tell people what to do, make that right pass, and all he had to do was finish it. I know it's a lot easier saying it than actually doing it. But that's why I think you need more ball handlers. We can't trust Chris Paul. Personally, I would trade Chris Paul right now if we could get something legitimate back in the point guard. If we could get DeJounte Murray or SGA. I don't know anybody that wouldn't do that right now.
What about Dame?
Oh, that would take another podcast for me to do some additional research. I have a hard time with
ball
that
dominant and his defense is sus.
I don't mind that. His defense has sucked, but it's been in the Terry Stotts drop defense. So I do want to see what it's like if he actually plays in a real system. But he's 31 too. He's getting that age. It's part of why I don't want to do KD as well. Bradley Beal's 28.
He's too old, dude, and he's hurt, and he always stays hurt.
That's what I'm saying, and I say I have a hard time saying no to KD. Like, if it happens, I welcome with open arms. If I had the decision to do it and I had other options, it's the key. If we have other options, I would try to look at those other options. But I want another legit, like Jason Tatum, another legit guy like that. And if you could get Beal and Booker together to be able to do that and have Chris Paul take that role, That's what I want. But
I guess that's where I'm always steadfast, because we're looking at the current recency bias and being like, okay, well, they got these two great wings, right? And like, we need to have two great wings. But I'm like, you don't have to win that way.
Like on it. So when we did the show a couple of days ago, you mentioned there's no three-headed dragons, whatever, in the league. There's always someone that needs to step back, but we're all saying as a collective that Chris Paul needs to step back and just facilitate.
Yes.
So wouldn't it make sense that we bring in someone as ball like offensively gifted as Bradley Beal or KD, even though.
Do you like Bradley Beal as a player?
Do that without Chris Paul's contract being part of the trade. That's what I'm saying.
Well, if he wants to win, he's going to have to take a pay cut. I think that would show some veteran.
I would like that. Also, Sarver said that they're going to go in the tax this year. Which, look at the Warriors and the tax, and look how much the economic impact that they're creating is absolutely ridiculous. So it pays to go in the luxury tax. So
100%.
Another thing, maybe he's learning that. Maybe Sarver's learning that, and he can put in a little more money. There's that aspect to it too. But do you like Bradley Beal just as a player? Amit, do you like Bradley Beal? Like, do you like his game or whatever?
It's never done anything in the playoffs. I mean, that's my problem. Like, I'm always looking at what actually wins. What actually wins? But let me just go back to this take, because I put it on their podcast last week, and basically, so my theory is that there's no such thing as a big three. There's never been a big three, ever, because there's always one player that has to sacrifice their game to make it work. And that's just the economics of playing a 5-on-5 game that's like continuous, right? So like Chris Bosh, 25-10 dude, comes to Miami. He's a 3-point shooter and a defensive specialist. Like, one of the
Kevin
first
Love.
3-and-D centers. Right?
Yeah.
Kevin Love, another one.
Ray Allen.
You can go down the board. I would even say that probably Klay Thompson was a lot of his possessions got taken away. I'm talking about with Kevin Durant there, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You talk about Michael, Scotty, and Dennis Rodman. Scotty's the one that took the back door. Dennis did what he did. Michael did what he did. Scotty had to take the back seat.
Yeah. So I just think that we're looking at it a little bit differently, and like you just said, Jay, CP3 is the one that has to step back, and there has to be a number 2. In my opinion, I think it works better with Ayton because there's not a lot of people that can guard him. Look at the centers in the finals right now. Who are the centers?
Yeah,
we're talking about.
I know.
6'9"
Looney,
and
Robert Williams,
and Al Horford.
You're not wrong. So let me add this wrinkle into it. So Flex comes out a day or two later talking about how the Suns were trying to trade Ayton already. He's been unhappy. He wants to be the one, which makes the Domantas Sabonis trade rumors make so much more sense now. I mean, in hindsight, I almost wish they would have done it, considering the turmoil that we're in now. And Domantas Sabonis would have had a chip on his shoulder, yada yada yada. But this is coming out. The video game article comes out. Apparently we're been burning on the inside, right? It's been fire on the inside. Guys aren't getting along as much as we initially thought they were. And DeAndre Ayton wants to be the main focal point and all that. Do you let's talk about that aspect of it and that wrinkle into this. I mean, does he want to be back? Is it best for him to move on as a player? Can it be, marriage back together, however you want to phrase it?
I think Monty and him have to figure it out. I think that's it. If he wants to come back, he went to high school in Phoenix. The fan base loves him, or I shouldn't say that. Part of the fan base loves him and will die for him. Will do anything for
part
him,
of the fan base.
Right? And the rest of us are we just
all
need to
Ayton's
see more.
fault.
Yeah, but I think him and Monty, if they can't get on the same page, then it's never going to work. He's going to have to move on.
Jay, do you think it's in DeAndre Ayton's best interest to move on?
I don't know. If he doesn't feel like he's okay, so I'll just start from the beginning. So I think where this DA whole situation why it's so frustrating is that I think in hindsight he hasn't been able or have the opportunity to like actually grow and like as a player and learn because rookie season, you're figuring out whatever, and then next season loses 25 games just over his PED thing. Then COVID happens. You don't play for 6 months, whatever, how long it was. And then in the bubble, like I barely even remember him playing.
Yeah.
So
he was
so
good,
then
though. No, he was.
He was
solid.
good. He was good. Everyone was good,
but he wasn't memorable.
No,
yeah,
the two memorable guys were Campaign and Booker.
And Book. Yeah. Yeah, those two carried. Then we go into the offseason and we acquire Chris Paul. And right away it's boot camp with Chris Paul, Booker, and Ayton. And I like Ayton got kicked in the butt to, perform at the level that Chris Paul wants him to. I don't think he was necessarily ready for that, but we saw in the playoffs that he can obviously be a main factor and stuff. And like we've heard throughout, the years and stuff and seeing Instagram posts, like he's not come to like Booker's house with playing like poker games and stuff. And it always seemed like he was excluded. And then you're like, well, he had a baby, but like half of the people there have like kids and they're there and stuff. And hey, he just
turned
always
out it
felt
didn't matter because he's playing video games until 5 a.m. But go on.
So like he's always like excluded himself, or the team is excluding him. Then like he's not a James Jones guy either, and he might be getting treated like shit. So if he is, and if it's in his best interest to move on, like feel free to move on. And but if he doesn't want to be here just because of money, I don't necessarily want to deal with that.
I kind of hinted to something like this. It was a similar rant, but I added like at the end, I don't think he's a sicko. And somebody just said it in the chat too. He's not a sicko like Chris Paul and Devin Booker. And I just don't think that their personalities mesh because they just think with a mama mentality type of thing. So I think with a guy like Beal coming in with a huge chip on his shoulder, I want to win. I want to do these things. I think he would have far more impact than DeAndre Ayton would. And honestly, dude, DeAndre Ayton can go to Charlotte. He can go to Detroit, wherever, some of those towns where you're getting 25 to 30 wins, and go see what that's like. Go see what it's like to be double teamed now because there's nobody else on the floor to get guarded by. See how that goes for you. And I think he's going to realize he had it really good. Now he could go see if he goes to Atlanta. He's not going to be the number one guy in Atlanta, dude. He's already got repertoires with not Bogdanovich, Kevin Huerter, a couple of these other dudes. You know what I mean? And he's going to be going in for Clint Capella. He's going to be the starting center. He's going to be taking a backdoor to Trae Young. He'll be taking a backdoor in Seattle to DeJounte Murray. So no matter where he goes in a few of those situations, he's not going to be the number one guy like he wants to be. You can be the number one guy in Detroit along with Cade Cunningham. Have fun doing that. That's kind of my rant on it. I don't know.
I guess I have a different opinion because I look at it and I go,
it's about time we have one. Shit.
I know, right? Like a dude shooting 63%. I mean, I'm just like, yeah, like if a guy's shooting that much, if he's shooting it that efficient, then he should be shooting the ball more. And I think he wanted the ball more, and that's very clear, especially when the team was winning. He wouldn't say anything. The team was winning. Now we're in game 7, life's on the line, and he's not getting the ball, and he's checked out. And I mean, I can speak from personal experience, like where it's just like, dude, I'm doing everything I can for this team and no one's giving me the ball and like, fuck this. But I just think that he has so much to give, and we're kind of being like, oh, well, and I really think CP3 is the problem here. And I keep, I'm hinting at it, but I just think that CP3, if we have to rely on him, we're in trouble. We already know that.
Yeah,
we got to give the ball to somebody.
That's the issue. It's depending on Chris Paul at this point with his age and stuff.
Let's say Ayton's not a sicko. Was Shaq a sicko?
Sure.
You think he was
100% a valid point? 100%. No, he was not. The point he was not at all. The point that you're making about him not being one is very valid. That's a really good point.
Yeah, because you can be a physical dominantly player and still contribute enough to a winning team when you want to contribute, right? And I think that's kind of where he's at, because I mean, I'm playing psychologist here, but like, he's probably been the best player on every team he's ever played his entire life. He doesn't know. And all these 7-foot players, especially with his athleticism and skill and the way he can shoot automatically, it's just like, what are you going to tell him to do better? Jump higher. And at this point, it's only about effort. It's all about effort. That's all we're telling him. Be more aggressive. That's all we want, to be more aggressive. We saw it in the playoffs. We saw it against Anthony Davis. We saw it in the finals. And then, he gets in a position where, everything that Giannis does is you're going to foul him. He runs into you, and that's a foul. So he really, for him, imagine his age. He's like 22, 23 years old at the point. He doesn't know, and none of us would. And even if we were older, we still don't know. How are we supposed to play him defensively? So I just think there's so much untapped potential with him that I wouldn't give up on it now.
Sure.
Especially for another wing player, because you're not going to get another front court player in that has that kind of capability.
Okay. Now let me pose this question to you, which is a realistic possibility as well. What if Booker and Mikal and whatever player, even Chris Paul you want to throw in there, what if they don't get along with him because these guys are putting in the work, they're doing all this stuff, they're watching extra film? DeAndre Ayton has come out saying he's playing video games. He comes in tired. He comes in lazy. They go to practice or do something, and they see that. They consistently see that, and they don't want to pass to him. You've played in games before where there's somebody you don't pass to, right? What if they don't do that on purpose because of those reasons? He doesn't put in the work like they say. I don't know anything. I'm just spitballing out there because that could very well be a possibility.
I would say this. I would say give it one more season, and if he doesn't put the effort in, then cut him.
You can't do just like one more. This was that give it one more season. You can't do it again because of contract situations. So
yeah,
you give him 150 million. He comes out and does the same thing. Then where are we at?
But he's in a limited role. That's a problem. Is that they don't give him the ball enough.
But but we're talking about because of the reason I told you, because they see that he's lazy and they don't want to pass to him.
I don't think that's it. I think okay, hold on real quick. Yeah. So if we're saying that, then what was CP3 doing in game 7, in game 6? This guy was lazy as fuck. He was lazy as fuck.
Yeah,
he
I will call that play lazy. So if you're not willing to give the ball to the guy that's the biggest, most dominant player and efficient player on your team, and you're trying to tell me that like he's not the guy because he didn't show up, well, he doesn't dribble the ball up the court. He doesn't catch the ball at the elbow and create. And yes, you're right. He needs to be able to do those things, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my point is that like you have to live and die through him. And we live and died through Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Devin Booker couldn't figure out double teams. Chris Paul didn't want to shoot. Mikal Bridges was a non-factor, and he's a $20 million player. And Cam Johnson is trying to be in the same range, and he couldn't make a shot. So and then on top of that, Cam Payne isn't going into contract year, right, next year, and he didn't show us anything that he could do. There's no confidence in this guy. Landry Shamet. I mean, it's funny. Like I watch the finals, or even like the conference finals, and I'm just like, it'd be really nice if our role players showed up. It'd be really, really nice if they showed up, and none of those dudes showed up.
It's hard. Like everybody was at fault, and I don't want to just be here blaming DeAndre Ayton for this, DeAndre Ayton for that. That's kind of what we're doing right now because that's obviously the hot topic and what we're doing moving forward. We've said it multiple times, so let's get it very clear. Bridges didn't show up. Cam Johnson, Shamet, nobody showed up. The coaching staff didn't show up. They didn't make changes. It was a top to bottom complete meltdown of like epic proportions. Jay, you got cut off a few times. Please take the floor.
So, like, really, my point was when we got onto the pod was if we're gonna keep Chris and move on from Ayton, I think that's like probably the best way to do things. This is why, because our main issues with Ayton is overall effort and just overall how he fits in our offensive scheme and system. He doesn't roll correctly. He doesn't drive aggressively. And then, he finishes around the rim pretty. And I look around the league, and there's comparable guys like Robert Williams and Clint Capella that roll correctly. They set aggressive screens. They make their presence known. And then they cost a lot less. And those guys fit with how Chris Paul facilitates things. And if Ayton thinks he's a max player, I think he's a max player, just not for this team. But I think we can find what we've been missing from DA in other players that aren't going to bitch as much and complain. And that's just really my thinking. And then if we're going to keep Chris, we have to build around him. That's what the Clippers didn't do. That's not what New Orleans did. And and Houston, he just got hurt. James Harden couldn't get it done for one game, and OKC was just a pit stop. The Clippers failed to surround Chris Paul for what he needed, and him and Blake Griffin beefed, and that's why that whole thing collapsed. So if we can find if Chris can take a step back, we bring in somebody that has a deep offensive bag where him and Book are trading off just like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's finally stepped up and has actually been a comparable to we can roll through this season, and Chris can just facilitate, only play 25 minutes a night, and then we can have a Portal or Clint Capella or Robert Williams, whoever, just doing what they're supposed to do: roll, set screens, and kick it out to somebody in the corner when we need them to, or do the fake handoff and drive. And we've only seen that from DA 3 times in the last 2 years, and that's one of the slickest moves that he can do. And he does it very well, but he never does it. And then after he did that one move, Booker in the press conference is we've been telling him to do that. Your bag is deep, do it. And he doesn't do it. And it's frustrating because we see it as fans, and analysts, they swear they watch Suns games, but they don't. They're pay that man. They kept on saying it every big game through the season. You got to pay that man. But us fans, we know where the effort level's at. We know what he's doing wrong. We see it every game. And I feel like we can find a big that can hit those target areas that we're missing with DA at a cheaper price, at the same time getting someone offensively impactful. So that's where my thing is at. You're not wrong, Ahmed, but I think that's where this team.
No, you're not wrong, but I'm right.
But the thing is, I think it's. I'll just say this:
you're not wrong, but fuck you.
No, I think it's unrealistic to think that you're going to get somebody that gets you the same production, offensive and defensively, that Ayton does. You can get a guy like Miles Turner or Clint Capella, right? But they're not going to be as efficient. They can only score one way. So DA can score a variability of ways. He's just built that way, right?
But then why doesn't he do it?
I don't know that part. That's the part that bothers me the most, right?
Exactly.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm
at. But that's what you and me, Ahmed, talked about.
We only need him to score that one way. It's just the fact that DA doesn't do it. That's what's the frustrating part of this.
But that's what was my frustration with him since coming from Arizona, Ahmed, is because he had that bag. You and I have talked about this, lost it, kind of regained it this year, but still wasn't quite that player we saw at U of A.
Yeah.
That's my problem. He's going into year 5 now, and we're still having this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why he doesn't do it. And I feel like that's coaching. And I think they don't give him the ball because he's never really, they never just thrown in the ball and just be like, go ahead. Right. He's not Joel Embiid. Yeah. Joel Embiid, they're just throwing the ball, just do your shit. Right. We never do that with him. He has to be in a few spots, elbow, post spot, pick and roll. He doesn't have, they just don't give him the ball and just say, go. And at the same time, we're dude, if you got, the ball at the top of the key and you got Pirtle on you, you can go around him. We know you can go around him. Right. So, and he did it in that Lakers game in the playoffs, right? Where he went around Drummond and did the reverse. So it's
I think
you know you got it.
That I put out, yeah.
Yeah, we know you got it. But I guess I just don't see why you would want to give up on him. He's 23 years old. Like, okay, let's say
And
right now.
that's the thing right there is he's 23 and giving up on him. That is hard for me. I promise you.
Okay, let's say this right now. You can flip Horford. Forget about contracts. Horford for Ayton. Would you do that?
Yeah.
You would do it?
Flip a 1-for-1? Yeah.
1-for-1.
Yeah.
Yep.
It doesn't matter where they are in the playoffs, where we end up. We're just doing it for our team.
Age doesn't matter. We're just talking about skill set and stuff. Like, of course, his age comes into a factor, and I wouldn't do it. But for skill set, for purposes, like, yeah, I would do it if we could get that right now.
Okay. I mean, I just don't count on that, dude. I just don't count on it because we're seeing Chris Paul last year. He was great. 2 years ago, he was great. Where is he now?
Yep.
Even though Horford is showing up right now, and props to him, dude. Horford is a badass.
There you go.
But everybody, and that's the thing. Like, it's recency bias. Like, we're trying to build our team around what we see as winning, and I think that when you have the variability of DeAndre Ayton on your team, that's better than having a 35, 34-year-old Horford.
I challenge people to go back and watch the first 16 games of last season when we went 8-8. I promise you, because I talked about it every.
That was a learning experience for this team.
That was a learning experience, but you know what we did? All we did was try to get it down to DA and let him work. We kept doing it over and over and over, and when we got away from it, we started winning. Like, I understand what the skepticism that everybody's going to say, but we have done that. The thing that I always go back, which is weird to even me, is why was Ricky Rubio able to have so much success with Ayton? But why is Chris Paul, the guy that made Tyson Chandler, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, all these dudes, what they were, these high flyers and Lob City, why was he not able to do that with Ayton? Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? No, you can't like, that's what's so weird about this. Is part of the reason why I do want to get rid of him. Like, this is the one guy Chris Paul hasn't been able to elevate as much as some of these other dudes, right? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. So for me, I want another ball handler next to Book. I don't count Chris Paul as the superstar anymore next to him. I think Booker needs somebody else, like a Bradley Beal. You need a shot creator, a shot taker, maker, that kind of thing. And in the NBA, you need people that can create. DeAndre Ayton doesn't create, man. You can talk about the defense, you can talk about all this other stuff, but you look at a lot of these other teams that are winning with Zaza Pachulia as the damn center, man. You know, I just feel like, and especially in today's game, when we are going to face a lot of teams that do go 5 out, you can't be paying a center that you have to take out. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Before DeAndre Ayton was able to go out and to guard the perimeter, he stopped doing that. And he's only 23. I want a shot creator, not I want to pay a shot creator and not DeAndre Ayton. And it's not a knock on DeAndre Ayton, but you need 2 guys that can go and get you buckets. Look how good New Orleans is going to be now with Brandon Ingram and CJ. 2 guys that can do it. Look how good Phoenix was when Chris Paul was that dude, right? Jalen Brunson and Luka tore it up. You need 2 guys that can go out and do it. And the good thing is, if you do have Chris Paul, Beal, and Booker, Chris Paul can sit out while Booker takes point or Beal takes point. Those guys can take turn, bring Chris Paul back in for the final 5-6 minutes of the second quarter instead of him starting the second quarter or starting the fourth quarter. This gives us more of that flexibility as well, too. You don't need a traditional point guard. Just look at what New Orleans did. That's just my take on it. I don't think you need a set center anymore. You don't need a set point guard anymore. You can have that person that dribbles the ball up, but you don't need somebody to get into their offense. What you need is shot creators, or I would actually make, offense creators. Guys that can make the offense and make everything move. I almost want to put Dario into that category, but he's not the type of shot maker taker that I'm talking about. He can definitely create some stuff. I am curious to see him coming back if we do keep him and how that all shakes up, because I loved what he had with
together.
Campaign and McHale.
It just worked.
Yeah,
it just did. I'm really curious about that. But Amit, that's where I come from. I want to pay that type of money to a shot maker, taker, creator, guy that can handle the ball and do all that stuff and elevate other people. And I don't want to pay DeAndre Ayton that money. That's where it's at.
I understand. And like I said, I mean, I'm just in a whole fog because like my inclination is to run it back and then make moves on the fringes, right? With the expiring contracts to get somebody else and keep DeAndre Ayton. And get maybe somebody lower than a Bradley Beal and maybe like a who would be a good guy, like a Herder or somebody like, somebody else on the fringe maybe, or like a Eric Gordon or whatever it is, ship out campaign, get Eric Gordon. But I don't want to mess up the chemistry because I think the chemistry was so strong. So this is the other thing that I thought about is that if we flipped what happened, right? So let's say last year we lost game 7 at home by 30 points. And then this year we went to the finals and lost, the same way we lost, right?
Should have been flipped. Yeah.
Right. Like it doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense.
It's just how the chips were. But last year we were down, we were 8-8 and people didn't believe us. And so we had the team rally around that fact. You know what I mean? And they fought and they had that chip on their shoulder. This year, it just felt like they expected it.
They
didn't fight through adversity this year at all.
Well, okay, so they were undefeated in clutch time, right? So we can say that.
They were like 51-0 after leading after 3 or something stupid.
57, dude. 57 games under 5 minutes. So that's something. But that was literally, I want to say like 80% out of Chris Paul. And where was this dude in the playoffs? Where was this dude anywhere? Like, if it wasn't clutch, this guy didn't show up.
I mean, he did go 14 for 14 to win us a playoff game, right?
Which is historic. And I rubbed it in the face of my Pelicans fan.
I'm surprised you have a Pelican friend.
Yeah,
I've never met a Pelican fan.
I didn't even know he was. I forgot
crazy.
I forgot they had a basketball team because he's always been a Saints guy to me. I never thought of him as a Pelican guy. No, yeah. So, but that's it. Like that game was historic. But like, where was that? I mean, how does Jason Kidd of all people, the guy that's throwing drinks on the court to get a timeout or whatever, like this is the guy that's beating you? And yes, I can see people can grow, right? Like as a coach, you can get better. But like he's straight up outcoached Monty Williams, coach of the year. What happened? We keep talking. We're going in circles. We can
keep going. We gotta close out here. It's been an hour and 40 minutes. Me and Amit has kind of taken the mic and we've swallowed it to a point. Jay, what do you have to say? Take us out before we play the outro and get out of here.
Being an Arizona sports fan, it's rough. We're gonna go through all this stuff, but this Phoenix Suns team is gonna be hopefully our saving grace going forward. I've said it multiple times. I think this team has a chance to be a dynasty going into it. We have to get some cuts and bruises before we finish on the other side. Jason Tatum, he's been through his battles. He was in the Eastern Conference Finals at 19 years old. That's when LeBron absolutely dominated the East for fucking 10 years and stuff. And he pushed it to Game 7, and then he had to deal with Giannis and the upcoming Heat and stuff. And now Tatum's in the finals. He may lose it, but still he's earning his stripes. It took Giannis a long time to get to where he was at, and everything just worked. It just worked last year for them, and it didn't happen this year for them. And so we're going to go through our stuff. That we just concluded our second year of competitive playoff basketball in over a decade, and so I really want to really tell people that, because it's going to be a journey, it's going to be a process. As long as James Jones continues to make the right moves and we clean up the mess, we clear the swamp, is what Trump was preaching for like 3 months. If we just clear all the negativity and we press forward and just be on the same page, I know we could be back in the Western Conference Finals at least. So if that means sending Ayton off, I'm happy with it. If it means sending Cam Johnson off, I'm cool with that. If the whole team as a collective wants to run him back and just make it work and change the offense up a little bit, if Devin Booker and Ayton take the more offensive reign than CP and Book, Like I want to see it. I want to see those two take over together, Shaq and Kobe. We haven't seen it, and I would love to see that going forward. But like I refuse to just sit on our hands. Seeing management sit on their hands and not do anything. Same thing with the coaching staff. Whatever Monty and DA have going on, it needs to be resolved. If not, send them off, because as Arizona fans, we do not have the patience for BS, because we've been, thirsty for a long time for a championship.
We've already been through the BS.
Yeah, we've been through the BS. We've had bad ownership, Coyotes, the Suns, the Cardinals. It's to the point where it's ridiculous, So we have the team now. We need to take full advantage, and I'd rather go out swinging than not do anything at all. If that means acquiring a KD and just rolling the dice on it, I want to do it. But with that being said, check out Bian Ahmed's first He's on Fire After Dark show. It's on YouTube. It's 2 hours long. We went a little long, but it's filled with content. We took some jabs at Evan. I don't know if he listened to the whole thing, but it was a good show. We're gonna keep it going and just going forward and stuff, and we'll see who's the best host at the end of the day. So
let's see who gets the top row. Roy, I would 100% trade DA for Paul George. I'm gonna leave you guys with this question on the outro. If you make a fist and you hit yourself and it hurts, are you weak or are you strong?
You're stupid.
No, are you weak or are you strong?
Man,
think about that for a second. I just needed to switch it up. Okay. Everything is bad.
That real quick. We got to get Brittany Griner out of Russia. I'm just saying it again and just amplify that, because that's some bullshit to be caught up on some weed charges in Russia, and it's a political ploy in the war against Ukraine. They're trying to use it against us. Free her.
Yeah,
thank you.
It's dumb. It's dumb as shit. Yeah, and at the same time, like, if we're gonna exchange a Russian arms dealer for Brittany Griner, like that's some fuck shit. So like we gotta figure something out. There's no reason why she should be.
Yeah, I don't know if that works in the trade machine either.
Yeah. The ESPN trade machine.
Man.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but hope she's.
Anyways, guys, thanks for coming on. Chierstin, Susel, thank you so much for coming on. You were awesome. It's good to have Ahmed back. We have the crew back. We're gonna get Suns fan Randy back at some point. He's on Fire Podcast. We'll see you guys next Sunday. Peace.
Urbandici sets, looks up, and it is caught! Dylan Strong! That's coming, Matthews, Palmer extending the play, crosses the field, Larry Fitzgerald, it's insane, to the 4-yard line. Crowder looking, throws it alley-oop, he puts it down! They're getting